Democrats need to pair. Democrats, because I was going to say it. Democrats need to grow a pair if they want to start winning again. According to a new poll, liberal women are the most unhappy and lonely group. Only 12% of them claim to be completely satisfied with their lives. And it's because all the manly men have flocked to President Trump. The Republican Party has capitalized on masculinity thanks to Democrats' obsession with catering to wimpy beta males. Clay Travis summed it up perfectly. Watch this.
Trump's like a grandpa.
Well, hold on.
Yeah.
Trump took a bullet in his ear and immediately stood up and said, fight, fight, fight. Every man in America and most of the women out here were impressed by that, even if the women won't admit it. She's shaking her head strong. And second part of this, basically summing it up, Democrats for men are and Republicans
Democrats.
aren't. Perhaps the left should take some notes from our Secretary of Defense. Pete Hegseth was up at the crack of dawn working out with U.S. forces in Poland despite freezing cold temperatures. All right. So if I'll start with you. If progressive Kennedy ideology is supposed to empower women, why does it seem that so many of them are feeling miserable and alone and unhappy?
Judge, you are a self-made woman, and you know what that takes. It takes hard work and self-belief and empowerment. You know, it comes by the grace of God, but it comes from within. So that means you are constantly looking at your life. You're going inside. You're trying to figure out, what will it take for me to do better? How can I work harder? How can I be more effective? And when you become a mom, it gives you even more of those refined superpowers. But when you are conditioned to think that the outside world is the thing that controls your life and controls, you know, this empowerment center, then you are now the object of victimhood. So you now think that it is the external world that is creating your reality. So you are constantly mad at the external world instead of thinking of yourself as an empowered individual with agency who has choices to make based on, you know, her own volition and her own needs, instead of the world just screwing the pooch on my behalf.
Like that analogy. If you were advising a Democratic candidate, Harold, would you tell them to man up and start talking about issues like crime, economic stability, opportunity?
Yes. I am a Democrat, so I do say those things to Democrats.
If you were advising a Democrat.
If I were advising, I would do that. So I like Clay. I think that's a little oversimplification. I think as we look back at this last race, voters did what they did every time in a presidential race. They make a basic calculation about who can best make their lives better. Are they better off than they were a few years before if someone's running as an incumbent? And though Kamala Harris was not an incumbent, she was essentially running as an incumbent on a record that she had built as vice president. Had Democrats had a clear and persuasive answer on how to secure the border, how to tackle and reduce inflation, if we'd applied common sense to cultural issues, we did it with abortion, but we didn't do it with little boys and little girls and bathrooms and sports. There might have been a different outcome to the race. I'm not as much caught up in some of the language and manning up and all of those kind of things. I mean, I think I get what they're saying. But if we find ourselves 6 months from today, and prices are not coming down, and people don't feel more confident about the country's future, politics has a funny way of the pendulum coming back. But unless we do these things, Judge, I don't mean to minimize or belittle this point or this moment. Unless Democrats take note of where we are and what the country is expecting from politicians, we won't find ourselves in a majority anytime soon. We have to do that to win back the confidence of America.
You know, what Kennedy was talking about, Jesse, is so true. And my question is social media. I mean, how much of this is social media, how the liberal women are kind of plugged into this toxic online spaces that fuel the victimhood and the anxiety?
Well, it reinforces the victimhood and the anxiety when you stare at that screen all day. But the Democrats haven't nominated a real man since Bill Clinton. Then they nominated Kerry, who was into kite surfing and bicycling and Botox and married an heiress. And then they had Obama, indecisive, aloof, not going to get into his marriage, not my role.
Good for you.
Then they nominated Hillary Clinton, no man wanted to vote for Hillary Clinton. No man would be proud to vote for Hillary Clinton. And then Joe Biden. And he was falling. He invited an invasion into this country, and he was scared of a virus. And then they put up Kamala, and even black men were like, I've had it. So at this point, too, you get these cultural currents coming in with the Me Too movement that made a lot of men scared and submissive. And then the pandemic, which made them conformist and lazy, and then DEI just made them apologetic. So then you have society conditioning men's testosterone down. And women see men with low testosterone, and they resent that because they don't like that. So men just tried to get lucky by being feminists. And that's even more of a turnoff. And it's just a vicious cycle. But the final straw was the transgender mania, because real men, they know this destroys their families, it hurts their children, their sons and daughters, but they still submitted to it. And that's when the Democratic Party broke man. And then there was a revolt. You got unions, you got blacks, Hispanics, millennials. They're all like, I am out of here. And that left who? Chuck Schumer, Tampon Tim, the mayor, Pete. And so everybody was like, I don't want to be at this table where it's Tampon Tim and a bunch of angry women screaming. We're going to go over here. We're going to tell jokes. We're going to get things done. Just don't give us any grief. And that's where we are now.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Greg, wrap it up.
Yeah, I mean, it is obvious that men are driven by the idea of security and protection. It's why we are always interested in self-defense, action movies, Second Amendment, law and order, a secure border. But Jesse, as much as it pains me, is right that the breaking point was trans. And when you get in the argument of trans, you go, oh, it's a tiny population. Well, then why is the needs of a tiny population being placed on us? And why are we supposed to remain silent and sympathetic to something that is so clearly wrong? What we noticed among women, and women tend to be the tendency to be more compassionate and empathetic, were being exploited by autogynephiles, men that like to dress up as women as a fetish, and then they preyed upon the compassion of women to defend them. And it was just a matter of time where men were like going, you know what? This just isn't right, you know? And then suddenly you looked at all the policies and the attitudes, and it made actual men feel unwanted. And there's one thing about men, they don't like being where they aren't wanted. So it wasn't like the Republicans really had to court them. They were being uncourted by the Democrats. They were saying, we think you are a subspecies. You can still hang around here, but then what kind of man hangs around like that? And I'm not talking about men the problem with the Democratic Party as well is you don't see heralds. The people you see are the David Hoggs. I don't believe that all Democrats are David Hoggs. I would like to think there are more Harold Fords, but we just don't see. You only see them on the 5, which is a real bummer, you know. But I guess my point is, I think the Democrat Party, and this is my advice I would give to them. You know, when the only men you elevate are men who say they're women, you got to stop that, and you got to depoliticize life. Sometimes a game is a game, a bathroom is a bathroom, a woman is a woman, and most guys would rather talk about the game than they would talk about trans. And I think that what has happened is the politicalization has driven men out to the arms of the Republicans.
You see the game last night?
Oh, it was amazing. I love a good game of Yahtzee.